Hey, good morning. It is see Tuesday, November 26th, 2024. That's 2 days before Thanksgiving. And I am I'm gonna post this, I think, at the beginning of all my explanations, because now that I'm where I'm at, I think I have a really complete view of my condition. And while I might not know exactly what tomorrow brings, I've got a pretty good idea. All right, so I'm going to start at the beginning because I want to give a full summary of my condition, and then I'll just give a little update on where I'm at today. So back in 1995, I had a spell of hyponatremia, which I had had before back in college. I had just forgotten because hyponatremia messes with your brain, is all I could say. You get very foggy, and so anyway, I had about a hyponatremia. I got to the point where I could no longer urinate. And so at this point, I'm very diluted. I don't have enough electrolytes in my system. And uh, I had been through a lot of medical stuff up to this point. I had kind of given up on medicine. And that probably, yeah, definitely my fault at that point. Like maybe if I get to the doctor at this point, something fixes. But I didn't. And so I found that I could think better if I drank a whole lot of water, but uh, anyway, I couldn't go. And I was very concerned about that. And, I wasn't having any movements and I couldn't eat. And it was just a horrible experience. So there was a night when I was trying extra hard to go and I had read something, and this is before the internet, folks. I mean, 95. So, I mean, barely internet, but not any type of internet, it's like AOL internet almost. And so I must have found this in a reference book or something somewhere, and it said, hey, you can, if you think you have like a kidney stone or something, you could uh, squat and really strain and as if you're having a BM, and you might be able to force it out or something like that. So I tried that, and so what that does though when you do that is it changes all the blood pressure kind of in your system. And so at that point, there's a vein and an artery down there in your kidneys area, and there has to be kind of this electrical uh, differential between them, between the charges, one going down and the other coming up, and that is it. It helps regulate a whole lot of things. But when you don't have a lot of electrolytes in your system, that can get a little out of whack there. And then another thing that helps regulate it is the pressure of those two. So when I squatted down and did that, I screwed up the pressure. And what happened was basically somehow or another, due to the pressure and the changes in the electrolytes, the potential across those two kind of changed somehow. And so now it was the other way. Okay. And so I created this back pressure, and the back pressure is created by a contraction of the inferior mini cava. So and that is the beginning of my condition right there. It's that contraction in the inferior vena cava, and it leads to the next 29 years of everything. Okay, so now I have this back pressure on the bottom system, and I go through a lot of physical things at that moment, and I pass out on the floor, and the next morning I wake up and I'm like sweating, and everywhere my sweat touches anything, my skin it gets all red, and now I go through. Oh, I don't know how long, quite a while, days, weeks, I don't remember, of just really bizarreness in my life until I got to the point where uh, I couldn't take anymore. I wasn't sleeping. The whole water thing was horrible. Uh, and so I checked myself. I went to the hospital in Tulsa. And so we drove from Norman, which was where I was at, up to Tulsa. And my blood pressure had been just super high and everything. And we got up here and checked me into the Laureate. And while I was in the Laureate, they got me on Klonopin to help me sleep. And I was having a lot of physical stuff go on in there. When I would eat anything, I would feel drunk, then I get nauseated, and my skin would change to a yellow color, and I would get hot and cold, hot and cold. I mean, just a lot of bizarre stuff was going on. Of course, you're basically in an insane asylum, although it's not that. It's a psychiatric, center or whatever. But and so nobody's listening to me complain about the physical stuff. And then I'm noticing that as I've now started eating while I'm there, that every time I eat, I have this huge amount of polyuria. And so I had noticed that back before I came. It's like my mom sat me down and made me eat a bowl of soup and stuff, and I literally went probably 8 times in an hour, huge volumes, and it was really bizarre, uh, and it made me feel almost normal afterwards. I felt so relaxed. I just felt like I was going to drift off and die after being so the high pressure, the the blood pressure and stuff. I mean, I just felt so tense. And then once I ate that one meal with it's lots of sodium and stuff in it, with the soup, and and caffeine and the Coke with sugar and all that stuff. And man, I just felt so relaxed. I felt like and so here I am in this place, and I've got people taking care of me, and so I'm eating more and more, trying to feel better, but yet I'm unable to control this polyuria, and no one's listening to me, and 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 so I'm trying to figure out what to do, and so I asked them if I could read the medical reference manuals behind the desk, and I find eventually something in there that sounds like just what I've got, and it's this horrible thing from this case study. And the way I find this is basically I just look at polyuria in the back, and I just scan every single page in there that mentions polyuria, which is a great thing about those type of things, so that you could find one word and it's referenced in all the pages. So anyway, I found this saying, and it was from early 20th century, medical case study. It was a really prolonged explanation for this diagnostic manual, because it was said it was really rare, and it was just using it to show how basically bizarre the human body is. And so I found this, and I read it, and it said, hey, it explained what the problem was with and everything. And the people that this had happened to, they had a different condition that attacked their adrenal glands and caused them to go into this same type of hyponatremic state where they encountered all this. And anyway, so they experimented on these people basically because they found a way to kind of reverse this condition. But it turns out that that leads to like this kind of lifelong illness. And it said that in today's world, there'd be an alternate way where you could literally stop the heart, and that would give time for that back pressure to go away. Okay. And then you'd restart the heart, and everything would be better. Okay. And so to do that, you'd have to give them like an alcohol drip, so that they had enough pressure so that this still maintain uh, the what is it? The blood. I'm just forgetting the osmolality of the blood, and pressure on the pituitary and stuff. And I don't know exactly why. And I think from there they stop the heart, and they'd be able to fix everything. Well, I couldn't get them to listen to me, obviously, and so the treatment that they used on these people back then was they had them hold the polyuria. They said you must hold till their body was sufficiently acidified, it said, and then they gave them this injection of adrenaline. Well, adrenaline wasn't even discovered until like 1906 or 1910, depending on somewhere you look at. So uh, they so that kind of gives us a time frame for when these experiments were. And then it says, you can add 25 years of life. So these people in these pictures that I looked at, that we'll talk about in a bit, so this had to be like the 1920s, 1930s at least, to have all these people in these pictures in this condition. Uh, but anyway, and so I obviously couldn't give myself an injection of adrenaline, but I could hold, and so I held, and and I asked for, I said, hey, I want out of here. I'm going to sign myself out, which evidently they couldn't stop me, which I should have done. But I mean, you got everybody in the world telling you you belong here, and I should have not listened to them. But so I held and I asked for two-liter bottles of Diet Coke. I figured I didn't want any sugar because I have this candidiasis, which is part of the system, I'm pretty sure. And and so I just want caffeine and acidity. So I drank a huge amount, over one of those bottles, I'm pretty sure. And I sat there, and so what they did was they gave those people a shot of adrenaline. It increased the blood pressure to their head, and that would cause this transition and kind of put the pituitary into overdrive. And the pituitary would take over control of electrolyte balance at that point. And begin basically doing things to systems that it normally wouldn't have direct control over. And this control is like once that's kicked in, that's permanent. Like okay, so from then on, the pituitary will always be trying to maintain this balance. So and that's very good for me if I get that done. But then at the same time, it creates issues, and we'll talk about that. So I did this. I drank the Coke, and so I couldn't make do the adrenaline thing, but with the addition of the Coke and everything, and then I held my breath and pressed really hard. So until I have this ability to like turn my whole face red and everything. I knew about that, but being able to hold my pressure and push. And so I did that until I felt like I was having a stroke. That's all I can tell you is that I couldn't move. Every sound was super high, it's super loud. It sounded like explosions. Uh, and after, a short time, less than half an hour, I'm sure everything kind of resolved. And first of all, I wasn't cold anymore, and I had been just freezing cold. In fact, I felt warm. Things started moving. Internally and in a good way, and and the polyuria just stopped. Like suddenly, I didn't need to go anymore. Okay, so to me, I implemented their change, and at that point, I'm like, okay, so I have this lifelong condition, and I've read everything in there, man. I have done as much as I can of remembering, okay, all the stuff, but I'm figuring, hey, when I get out of here, I could tell some doctor, I'm like, well, I have this really rare thing that you've never heard before, but it's out there and we'll find it. And nope, yeah, that's never happened. Never found that person that would. So what's happened is that, and it mentioned this in the article that I read, it said that condition was being reclassified since it was iatrogenic and it was being rolled up under like autoimmune, endocrine, was it APAC? Yeah, so autoimmune polyendocrine with candidiasis, you could tell the author was a little confused by that. And this is a very long kind of many pages with pictures and stuff. So this person who wrote it, they obviously knew a lot about it, and which means they probably had firsthand experience. And this book was, I don't know when it was published, but for them to have firsthand experience and all of the organic chemistry knowledge that was in here, oh my God, at the organic chemistry it talked about, because basically, when it takes over your endocrine system, just all types of weird changes are going on. And it had like everything fully explained. It's like, yeah, and here this is going on, and this is causing this. But the key to it all is that your uh, when everything is taken over, the system can no longer tell how much volume is in your system. And so, in order to regulate the electrolytes, which it can't get rid of. So, and I skipped something. So when I did that thing and the polarities reversed, the problem is that uh, at that point, you're shedding, and I can't remember right off the top of my head, but anyway, you're retaining potassium and and you're shedding your sodium. And so when your system is trying to tell itself, hey, withhold uh, volume so that we build blood volume, because of the base of the charge is flipped. Instead, it's saying the exact opposite. Uh, and so you would lose volume. So that's why I'd have like that polyuria. As soon as I would start eating anything with electrolytes, it would just be like huge amount of flow because it would be like, okay, hold on to this. We need this, and nothing. Yeah, not good. So, uh, yeah, anyway, so I have dealt with a lot of issues in my life from this, and those are documented here and elsewhere. And I am very confident that I have what I say I have. It's not out on the internet anywhere. That's fine. I have 100% absolute conviction. Uh, I would bet anything because I have looked for alternate explanations, and then man, when you go through one of these transitions, so what happens is your body is trying to figure out what to do with all this extra potassium all this time because things have flipped, and it can't get rid of the potassium through normal means, and so it's building up in the system. And the other thing is you have this candidiasis in your system, and that's producing potassium, and so that's like creating this imbalance of, okay, I got way more potassium than I need. Uh, and so, I found some assistance by using antifungals to clear my mind and things like that. And I think I've definitely outlived all their people probably because I had the antifungals and things like that. And I exercise regularly to sweat and things. But, I have just gone through a lot. And so what happens is your system would get to a point where, okay, whatever I'm compensating with right now to deal with this potassium doesn't work anymore. And so at that point, you basically go into some type of transition, and that could be like years, okay, to get to that point. And it had graphs and it illustrated like, okay, here's as the potassium climbs, it gets to this point, and at this point, it can't do anymore, so something has to change. And so while it's doing that climbing, you feel every day is the same. Okay. But as soon as it gets to that point, boom, transition, lots of changes, horribleness, and everybody thinks you're crazy because nothing shows up on blood tests because the pituitary is regulating the electrolytes and putting these electrolytes either into tissues or into stool or different types of ways of maintaining things. Meanwhile, your blood volume is continually dropping over the years. And in some phases, it's actually higher. So uh, anyway, so I've been through a lot of those transitions and it's basically this war between the candidiasis and your pituitary. And the pituitary is doing everything it can to keep the candidiasis from progressing. And the candidiasis is like, well, the system isn't fighting me anymore. And that's the change that happens early on is that the pituitary has to turn off part of your immune system in order to make this function. Because the first thing it does is it forces all that potassium into your cells. And when it does that, it causes the candidiasis to go, oh, I can't be here, and it moves. And so uh, anyway, I've been through a lot of those transitions, and here we are 29 years later. And so, 3 years ago, almost 2 years, 10 months, I guess, I went through what I very quickly identified within the first 24 hours as the last big final transition. It was just, one day, and I had been feeling like really tired for months, like didn't want to climb stairs, man, didn't want to walk. And I'm a guy who works out and has run, and, I've done 10Ks and 5Ks, and, was working out even then 4 days a week. And literally, I just called up that week and canceled my gym membership because I knew I was never working out again. But I went through that transition, and at that point, I didn't know how long I would have. I didn't. I didn't know. If it was weeks. I thought it was going to be weeks. I was like, okay. Uh, And then as time has gone on, I've gone through so many other of these kind of rapid unwinding. And I remember that from the article, it talked about how that last transition would kick off kind of a rapid unwinding of all the previous steps you'd been before. Well, if you think about it, that was 26 years. I think, 3 years, so about 1/10 of that time to rapidly unwind everything they've done before. That kind of makes sense. And that's where we are today. And I'm not going to go through all the stuff I've been through in the last 3 years, but let's just say it was equivalent to the previous 26. And yet I have still managed to maintain my job. In fact, I have almost 100% of my vacation built up right now. I took a couple days last week, so I'm down to maybe 300 hours of vacation stored up. But uh, anyway, so last week I had, well, I'll start back in October. I had a couple days of very serious, sudden stomach changes. Okay. And so throughout this, there is cramping involved for days on end at certain times of the day, which is really weird. Like in the evenings, there's skin burning and different things, and then you have these peaceful, and there's lots of changes to bodily functions, and you kind of get used to that. But when there's just very sudden change, especially accompanied by cramping and stuff like that, okay, either I've got a virus or this is like some type of big shift in my illness. Well, it was a big shift in my illness, and I knew it was. And things changed after that, not hugely, okay, but significant enough that I could look at like, things and say, okay, yeah, this is not a month ago. Uh, and so I thought, well, that was it. And we were going to go downhill pretty quick. Well, I just want to say that I have now had 6 weeks or more of, of additional time is the best way to put it. And I'm very thankful for that. And I believe I'm going to make it through Thanksgiving, although I don't know what this afternoon is going to be like or tomorrow. Uh, but I will go through kind of what I've been experiencing over the last week, just so you can see how bizarre this thing is. So kind of what led up to last week was that I had whenever I walk very much, and I'm just talking, maybe 4 or 5 thousand steps in a day, or something like that, my legs would hurt so much the next day that I've just avoided. I've done self-limiting, and it's directly out of the article. It talked about how people would be self-limiting, but Tuesday I had something going on, and so Monday I had to run a lot of errands, and even in the evening I was still doing stuff, and man, it was a stressful week anyway because I had HR issues with employees that I had to deal with. I had Bitcoin at all-time highs and MicroStrategy going through the roof, and me like very heavily invested. And so I had to kind of manage all that. And anyway, so the stomach thing hit, and then so I had a couple days of like just weirdness there. Then I started having nausea every morning. I had nausea. And then I had a Friday night. So Friday night, trying to think. I think it was Saturday night. I had pain in my chest in the evening, and it's just for a couple hours. And I've had significant pain like that multiple times throughout this illness. And hey, if it's a heart attack, who cares? Because there's absolutely nothing I can do about that heart attack because anything that they do to me when they take me in there is most likely for the worse because they do not have any frame of reference for this condition. My body is burning ketones. It is not burning, it's not generating ATP in normal ways. And so, there is hardly any blood flowing through my body. And you're going to say, well, that's impossible, Jim. Well, if you're watching this video, it's possible because I'm not releasing this video until I'm gone. Okay, so and I'm not taking myself out. So, and I will tell you, so last week after the 2 days of stomach stuff, I'm like, okay, let's go get my normal blood work and then schedule an appointment with the doctor so that I can at least reference the blood work for him beforehand. So I went and got a CBC, a CMP, and I got my a UA, and I got I checked my I got my insulin checked. And I will say, I just had to pause just now because I've been forgetting words, and so I don't know, it's definitely part of what's going on. Uh, and I will say too that over the last 6 weeks, I felt really energized. Like, man, like just really energized. So then I had the chest pains Saturday, and then I just, I had a night there where I felt like cold and then hot and then cold and I couldn't, it wasn't as extreme as back when I was in the lawyer, but it was very noticeable that my temperature was unregulated. My wife thought I had a temperature. She said I was just radiating heat, yet my body, my surface temp was normal. I don't know if my core temp was high or what, but that's the type of thing that it noted in this condition because it kind of sets up this uh, bifurcated system of your venous supply and your arterial. They literally have different pHs. It's a whole deuce to everything that's going on. It's so bizarre. Anyway, uh, but I do know my blood gas would be wrong. I've been trying to tell my doc that for over a year, and he wouldn't listen to me. Uh, anyway, so we get to this week, and yesterday was Monday. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to work or not. And so in the morning, I felt like really tweaky. Is the best way I could put it. Like really jittery. I mean, like just got up, ate my normal eggs, and ate it. I'm not hungry at all. I just want to say I'm not hungry. Nothing sounds good. I don't even know that I'm digesting. It sure doesn't look digested. Uh, but I I have, you know, that Monday I was super tweaky, and then I had to go pick up the turkey and ham, and then when I got back, I had zero energy level. I mean, I couldn't even sit up straight in my chair, and I'm kind of anticipating that's going to happen today again at noon. I don't know because there's circadian stuff involved in this, and when your pituitary is kind of failing, which is where we're at right now, it's it kind of reverses your circadian rhythms. It talked about that in the article. So I was just sitting here like this in my chair, even in a meeting, I was sitting like that, and that's just not me. So I got done with the meeting and I just went and lied down for 2 hours. And then, by late, it was, 5 o'clock or so, I was feeling more energy. So better. Managed to force dinner down. Uh, and here we are today. And I'm not feeling that super jittery thing this morning. So we'll see. Like is if this afternoon it's going to be like that or not. I don't know. I doubt. I don't know. Uh, But I do know the article talked about that, the most that when the stomach finally gave way, and they called it drops, but I think that means that basically the circulation of the stomach gets completely cut off. And I kind of thought that happened Thursday because I mean I'm Saturday because of the pressure in my chest, and then that went away. Uh, but maybe that's still yet to come because things are still kind of moving through. Uh, I don't know, but it talked about how the most likely scenario would be that they would show up wondering why they hadn't had a BM in 4 days at the hospital or something, and that's definitely I haven't reached that point yet, so I think we're good there. The other possibility was that the food would just back up in their system, and uh, it would kill them as it basically kind of uh, got to their aorta through kind of the upper area of their stomach and kind of ate through there. So, you know, I think I at least make it through Thanksgiving, which is all I can ask for at this moment. I am losing some weight. I'm assuming it's going to continue because I'm definitely not digesting the food that I eat. And I'm not drinking a whole lot because I have ketones. And it was very clear in the article about how when the high specific gravity with ketones was replaced by the low specific gravity, that there would just be no stopping that, and that you would kind of go back into this uh, kind of deadly polyuria type situation. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And I'm very confident in everything after all these years. And yeah, that was a whole lot of stuff you probably didn't want to know. But to put it in context without those specific pieces of knowledge, uh, there is no relating this story to you in a meaningful way. And so I have to share that level of information. And I've got, most of my test results from the last few years are out in a folder reference from my website. And, uh, you know, I, I've done everything I can, documented everything I can. I've prepared financially. I have effectively said goodbye to my sister this weekend. And I'm just trying to struggle day to day. And right now, at least nobody in my household, other than my mother, who lives nearby that I've spoken with, is aware of exactly how I'm feeling today. And that's exactly how I want it, because I want as many normal days as possible, because there are no alternatives. Like, okay, I can have it be a normal day, or I can have them be miserable. Uh, and but there's nothing that I can affect about this. There is no change that I can create. The change that I can create is to add another normal day. And so that's what I do, is add another normal day. And uh, you know, I think that's the right thing to do. The last place I want to be is a hospital. Now, I do have a doctor's appointment for tomorrow because of leg pain and stuff. And I think, if I was trying to get him to do, and he would have done it back the last time I scheduled an appointment, and I kind of said, let's not, because I just didn't want. I mean, things would start being abnormal. But anyway, I was looking for the ultrasound on my legs to see just exactly what the flow looks like there, because I'm very sure there's very little flow. You can't find a pulse in my foot, and I went when I got my blood taken last week. She Now I have big veins, okay, and they always come in. Oh, beautiful veins. I'm one of those guys. And so she went right into big beautiful vein in my left arm, and it got like about 4 drops of blood, and that was it. And she's like, "Well, that's weird." And she pulled another vacuum tube and stuck it on there, and got a couple of drops of blood, and that was it. So then she stuck the other arm with a smaller needle, and she was able to get blood. But now realize these, in the past, and my blood pressure is normal, but in the past, at various points in my life, it would just splurt out of there. It looked like it was exploding out of there. And now it just kind of dribbles out. And that's the thing, is this is very volume depleting, this condition. Because your pituitary can't see volume. And so it's just, as it's saying, hey, do things, it's not taking into account what the total volume is. And so the total volume just gets smaller and smaller. And so, like, if you go into periods of where your body is losing extra fluid, that fluid just never gets replaced. And I've had 3 different points in my life. I think I've had them give me fluids, and notably in 2018, I gave blood, and I gave blood specifically for the reason to prove to myself that I didn't have this condition. Okay. Because I had been doing well and everything, and sure enough, the day after I gave blood, I went into this, like, the room was spinning, and then I started through a whole transition. So yeah, the reduced blood volume, reducing it further through giving blood, proved to me at that point, okay, you've got this condition, okay. And man, at that point, I was just all about, okay, just going to force myself, through this. And, if this is the end, it's the end, whatever. I'm just going to keep going. And hey, I got and I got 6 more years. I got to see my son graduate high school, go to college. I got married. I've had the love of my life. Bitcoin has ascended, in my opinion, although we are down today, down to 92 or something like that. But, it's obvious that Bitcoin is going to succeed. So, uh, I've I've treasured these days, and uh, I made significant life decisions based upon the fact that I know that I have conviction that I have this condition. And that's what I would wish for everybody is that if you have conviction about something, that you begin making your decisions based on that so you don't regret, uh, you know, the things in your life. And I, I've, done what I can. So that's my kind of explanation about everything. My name's Jim Craig. The condition is called terminal onset diabetes insipidus with candidiasis major. It has been redacted as far as I can tell from all current medical literature. It is based upon this human, I don't know if you want to call it experiment. There were a large number of people that had this condition that it was from TB that theirs was caused. And I think they were all men. I think it has something to do with the prostate that allows this to occur in men. I'm not sure. But they there was tons of pictures. There was explanation of everything at the organic chemistry level. And yeah, I can't remember all that. And my I got a C in both organic chemistries, but I took cellular biology and college and things, and so I could see where all this stuff. I understood at least enough of it to see the sense in it, and it was also fascinating to me because it was like this war uh, between this organism, which is much older than mankind, candidiasis, and our biology, and specifically our endocrine system, and to show you that wow, there's so much more that the endocrine system can do that it's not doing. People that have diabetes, is this relevant? Like, could you do something with this? Because it controls, you think about it, you put your pituitary in control. Okay, so it's now controlling blood sugar, it's controlling everything, and heart rate and everything. It talked about in the article about how that gave people an advantage in athletics and different things like that. And so, and that it had been looked into for the super soldier program. So, I mean, it, I it's a bizarre condition, and I can understand why it has been redacted, but it's real, folks. So, just realize that your science is preened, that your science is not complete, and that people out there, I don't know, the WHO or government agencies or whatever are making decisions to hide science from you based upon what they consider to be ethics. And I'm sitting here wondering how many other people could have had that initial condition I had, where they had hyponatremia and they didn't get to treatment and they ended up with this reversal of pressures, and those people just die. I mean, literally, those people, it's very common to die of hyponatremia. Uh, and uh, this treatment could affect them. And if it was documented, then I would know better because there's definitely things that you can do during this to help or hurt your condition, and I would know better if I had complete access to that. So I think it's a travesty that I don't have access to that information. But anyway, that's a long ending. I usually don't end that long, but I just felt like it was important for me to kind of summarize the whole condition and say, hey, it's been 29 years now, and I would do what I did 100 times out of 100 because I had no choice, and I got lucky. Honestly, I saved my life, and I've been through a lot as a result. I put my loved ones through a lot, but I've also contributed to society and, have a great son and, have created memories for people. And I think that's what it's all about, folks. All right? Leave something behind.